WWE superstar Dolph Ziggler here in Miami for WWE SmackDown. It's here Tuesday night at the American Airlines Arena. Dolph, first, what's it like being here in South Florida, being in Miami?
I love it. Weather's great. Avocados on everything. A little bit of dewy, sweet air flying around us. It's great. I've had a great couple days in Florida, actually, for a couple of live event shows, and of course, Monday Night Raw in Tampa, so it's been a blast so far.
Now, you're a Cleveland guy.
Yes. I mean, Dolph Ziggler's born in Hollywood, Florida, but I am a Cleveland guy.
Well, since you brought up the Hollywood, Florida part, I'm just curious. Pat Patterson had or has family that lived in Hollywood. I'm just wondering if this is a thing with Pat, or is this something that came up?
I wish it was a cool inside joke with Pat and I, but it is. It's just a friend of mine named Timmy Baltimore, who used to manage in Ohio Valley Wrestling when I was in developmental. Always thought that these local guys who sometimes would be in AWA or NWA, they'd be from Hollywood, Florida, and he thought it was the greatest thing in the world. Because you'd hear Hollywood, and then you'd wait for Los Angeles, it'd be Florida. And it was a kind of a running gag. It was like a shout out to the old, 80s wrestling scene. So it stuck with me, and I kept it. They asked if I wanted to change to California, and I said absolutely not.
Now, being from Cleveland, what do you like about Cleveland?
Man, everything. Blue collar attitude, always following the Browns, Indians, Cavs, no matter, with no championships. Always die-hard fans who are just, and it kind of resembles my kind of attitude in the WWE, to kind of never say die, but always just missing out on some championships. And it's a close tie and a lot of friends. And I mean, to this day, I'll get a text about Big Chuck and Little John or the Browns from a couple friends in Cleveland. It's pretty funny.
Being that LeBron James was with the Miami Heat.
Yeah.
He's with Cleveland, Miami, now back to Cleveland.
Yeah.
What was it like for you when he ended up leaving for Miami?
Some people were very disgusted and disappointed, and I understand how business worked, so I was okay with it. I thought it was cool that he came back too. He gave Cleveland a try, gave Miami a try, came back and said, hey, let's try this one more time. What a hell of a season they had this year. It was so fun following them. Because playoffs in any sport are fun, but having the Cavs be that close and just makes everyone excited for next year. I'm very proud of what they did this year.
Most famous pro wrestler, sports entertainer from Ohio, Dolph Ziggler, The Miz, Al Snow.
I think you put most famous. Miz is really good at being famous. I'm really good at everything else, especially being a wrestler. So I'll give Miz the most famous, me being the best, and then a couple of blank spots, and then put Al Snow underneath it. Just put unknown or NA, and then get to Snow at like maybe 57, 58.
I think Mick Foley would agree with you on that.
Yeah, I'm sure he would.
Now, you're a St. Edward Eagle
Yes.
high school alum.
Yeah.
And football and wrestling, or what sports were you doing?
Yeah,
there?
football, wrestling. I only played football my first 2 years. What a bummer. It was like the bulk up for football because I was 98 pounds, and lose weight and stay at 98, 103 for wrestling, so I kind of had to make a choice. I went there to wrestle, so I stuck with wrestling, but I still did intramural hockey. I did everything we could possibly do there. We had a blast, but that wrestling team I was on was so awesome. Coach Urbis has this legacy of this awesome coach, and he's so great. And at any chance I can go back for Christmas, I'll say hi to him too, just because what he does for those guys is unreal. That 2 teams in 4 years were national championship winners in high school, which is not even, I didn't know that was a thing. And 1 year we had Olympians, Big Ten guys who are coaches now, and it just, I wanted to be a WWE superstar. We all went on to live out our dreams, so it's cool.
It's interesting because we talked to Gray Maynard, who was a UFC fighter, and you had Andy Grovat, who was an Olympic wrestler.
Yeah.
That team had to be one of the best teams ever when you go down top to bottom of amateur wrestling high school teams.
Yeah.
And you were a part of this.
Yeah, I was very lucky to be a part of it. I was one of the few people who only took fifth in the state that year, because there were, I think, 5 or 6 state champs. Everybody did so great. And the team was great. Coaches are awesome. And went on to even more success after, because you can kind of peak in high school. Those guys went on to win multiple All-American titles. There's national champs in there, and I went on to be all-time winningest wrestler at Kent State, so it was kind of fun.
There are also some other famous alum that went to St. Edward High School, and I'm just curious if you ever met TV talk show host Phil Donahue.
I wish I did. We always talked about him, and my uncle, who went to St. Ed's years before I did, would always tell me that he was in the same grade in a couple classes with Donahue, but my mom loved him. I just never got a chance to meet him.
And then the other one is the Iron Chef, Michael Simon.
I honestly did not know that. That's kind of funny. This is like a Jiminy Glick interview. It's so great. That's funny. I know what that is. I just didn't know he was there. That's great.
So being that St. Edward has this long tradition of all these personalities, you fitting the bill as far as a personality. What is it like for you being from there and then also living out your dream and something you've always wanted to do, I guess, since you were little, right?
Yeah, since I was 5, I wanted to be a WWE superstar. But it is very cool because there is a cool tradition at St. Ed's of just giving back to the community. I went back and I don't even recognize the place because it looks like a college campus now. It's mind-blowing what's going on there, and it's all about people carrying on that tradition of becoming successful and then giving back to the school.
Now, when I say to you that St. Edward's is going to be wrestling today or competing against St. Ignatius High School, what do you have to say about that?
That's great. It was a great rivalry. It's fun to make fun of St. Ignatius, but when I was there, they were up for national champions, or may have been national champions in football, and most of the time we'd be on the short end of the stick at a football game, but we would make sure those wrestling matches were 66-0 and things like that. So we were 2 Catholic high schools competing against each other constantly, so it's a fun rivalry. And yeah, anytime someone's like, "Oh, an Iggy boy, all right, we have a little instant right." It's like that Pittsburgh Browns kind of thing. So it's really fun. And but to meet somebody now, bygones are bygones, of course. You know, we were always competing to see who was number 1.
You mentioned your uncle. So has this been a family thing where a lot of your relatives and family have gone to St. Edward?
Not so much. There was 1 or 2, but also both of my brothers also went to St. Ed's too. So the 3 of us did, and we all at least did a couple of the same things. I was on SCTV, which was our homeroom news channel, and I was, I always looked up to Chris Van Vliet. I always wanted to be a news guy like him. So I took it just to get credits, but I did behind the scenes work, and I was actually one of the anchormen who welcomed everybody to homeroom and did our news show. It's pretty funny.
Also, you went on to college afterwards, and you went to Kent State.
Yes. Just enough away, so I was going away from the family, but in case of an emergency, I could zip home in an hour and a half if I had to. I really liked it. I was a walk-on at Kent State University. After the first year, I was beating out our senior starter, and I earned I got to take over his scholarship when he quit, so it worked out for everybody after that.
What did you major in?
Political science major with a pre-law minor.
This is fascinating. You have WWE Hall of Famer Donald Trump running for president. So we might actually have a WWE Hall of Famer become president of the United States.
Very cool,
you were a political science major.
Yeah.
First of all, what are your thoughts of Donald Trump and a WWE Hall of Famer running for office?
First and foremost, I'm an advocate of reading and people not just living on Facebook and Twitter, but if you're going to get news off Twitter, cool. If it gets people watching the debates because Trump is a draw, which you hate him, you love him, or you take anything out of context you want, he is a draw. And people I know who don't pay any attention to politics unless they read a headline on Twitter were all watching these debates just to make their hacky jokes, but still they were watching the debates, and it gets people talking about politics, which I love. So win-win. He's got people, maybe he'll get people voting, maybe he splits up the Republican and Democratic party's votes, so who knows, he can maybe swing an election one way or another.
Have you met him?
Yeah, I have. Oh my gosh, you know what? He gave me a compliment because I did something. There's people who come backstage and sometimes they give you a generic compliment like, hey, that was cool, and they have no idea, they just know you're there. I was in a segment before him, did some match, it was a pretty good match, and he was like, hey, that was pretty cool when he did this one thing, like he pointed out an actual thing that happened. And I was like, yeah, thanks. I was like, he was the boss for the day, I think. He had taken over for Vince. I was like, you know what, I wouldn't mind you being the boss full time. And we had a good laugh, and that was pretty cool. I just remember that.
Now, would politics be something you'd be interested in after WWE?
Absolutely. When I was in high school, this was before UFC was really, really big. This is 25 years ago, or however the hell old I am. My junior year of high school, I said I figured I was gonna go to college, do great in wrestling, go to UFC, have a couple good years, use it to get to the WWE, and use the WWE much like Jesse